this episode of the podcast, I sat down with Dr. Bryan Ardis. Dr. Ardis is a really interesting guy. I became familiar with his work probably a year or two ago. Someone sent a clip of him speaking about the medicinal benefits of nicotine to me. And then more recently, that happened again with a couple other friends, and I decided it was time to reach out to him. And gracefully, he accepted the invitation. A lot of people send me those clips because they know I work with tobacco as a medicine, and a big part of his work has been bringing to light the medicinal benefits, specifically of nicotine, and de facto, therefore, the tobacco plant, and also a lot of plants or foods that are also in that family, the nightshade family. So very fascinating conversation. I know for a lot of people it's kind of a strange topic because we've also gone into a lot of the propaganda, the kind of misinformation, even just very basic things about how the pharmaceutical industry works, how the nature of alkaloids and synthesizing them, and the medical model, and just plants in general as medicine. So it was a very fascinating conversation. We also touched quite a bit on the COVID epidemic and a lot of the inner workings behind that, and also not coincidentally, tobacco, nicotine is a very good remedy for a lot of the ailments that come around that. Again, this isn't medical advice. Always do your own research. But he shares a lot about that. Very interesting guy. I think doing really amazing work bringing these things to the public because it is very important. And also, as we spoke about, there is a concerted effort now to try and actually ban tobacco and tobacco products because of the medicinal use. So again, I know this may seem like a strange topic for those who are maybe new to this podcast. For those who aren't, it probably isn't strange at all. And it will be a fascinating conversation because it's more of the medical or scientific literature, which is quite abundant behind the medical use of tobacco and nicotine. So as always, thank you all for the support. If you're able to support this podcast, that's a really big help. If you're able to via Patreon, that's a big help to me. It's a website. You can sign up for as little as $1 a month. There's different tiers you can sign up for. Those tiers also give you different things back, things like early access to shows, bonus material, Q&As. As always, to all of the people supporting that way, thank you very much for your help. And if you're able to, it makes a big difference. And if not, as always, supporting with the algorithm. So if you're viewing this in YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, hitting the subscribe button, turning on the notification bell, liking the videos. And if you're if you're listening to this on Apple Podcast or Spotify, which are still the biggest platforms, leaving a starred rating and a short review. When this is released, we're actually, myself and my colleague Merav Artsy, if some of what Bryan spoke about, the medicinal aspects of nicotine is interesting and you're interested in working with myself and my colleague Merav Artsy, when this is released, we will be in our plant medicine dieta in Ireland, but we're actually sold out for that. We have a remote dieta coming up at the end of August, and then our final in-person retreat of the year, which will be in the Sacred Valley of Peru the month of November. So if you'd like more information about that, you can check out my website at nicotianarustica.org, and there'll be a link to that in the show notes. So that's it for the intro. I hope this finds you all well, and without further ado, here's my conversation with Dr. Bryan Ardis.
Running out from the maze, running out from the maze, running out of the maze today. Running out from the maze, running out from the maze, running out from the maze today. Running out from the maze, running out from the maze, run out of the maze today.
Well, thank you. Should I refer to you as Dr. Ardis, Bryan? What do you prefer to be called?
The whole world calls me Dr. Ardis.
Okay, so let's go with Dr. Ardis. So we were just briefly chatting before we started, and I think it was maybe a year and a half ago, someone sent a video of yours talking about nicotine. And I found it very interesting because obviously it's not a subject that's covered much. And then a few weeks ago, two more people sent me new clips of you again speaking about nicotine. And as people who are familiar with this podcast know, that's a big part of my work, not specifically with nicotine, but with tobacco. So I thought you'd be a fascinating guest. I mean, so many of the things you're talking about, not just nicotine as a healing agent, which may sound crazy to people that we're even using those words synonymously, but even the things around it. I mean, even as we were just talking about, and I'm sure we'll get to this, kind of this now concerted effort, which has really been happening for a number of decades, but especially recently, and especially, I think, during and post COVID, this kind of agenda that's coming out. And one of the things I really respected about you as I began to learn about you was your stance on COVID. And I think that's really a test of so many people's character is the principles they live by. And I think that was a time that was so divisive and really kind of showed people's true character, what they believed in. Did they believe in unity or division or, all the things people like to believe they believe in. But when the shit hits the fan, you have a chance to actually see what your colors are. And I was very myself outspoken against a lot of what I saw during the COVID pandemic, and it got this channel demonetized and banned, and we've come out the other end. But just to say, I really respect people like yourself for taking that stand. I think it's really important. So I would imagine a lot of the audience is probably heard of you, but for those who haven't, and maybe even those who have, maybe if you could just give a bit of a background about yourself, who you are, your work, and also specifically in this field of nicotine, what got you interested in studying that?
Yeah, it's very good. Thank you for the invite, and thanks for the intro and explaining to the audiences why this conversation is even happening. I'm Dr. Bryan Ardis, and yes, appreciate all those who used common sense and logic to speak out against what seemed to be ridiculous, what they called COVID-19's pandemic, and every asinine thing they voiced as science, which has nothing to do with science. I hope none of you fell for this thing that are out there watching this. I hope you really did not fall for the narrative that a bat coughed in China and made the whole world sick. I hope you didn't fall for that. And I hope you really didn't fall for the narrative that a virus only flies in the air for 6 feet. This one in kamikazes to the earth after 5 feet, 12 inches, and then it collapses by gravity to the earth. I hope you didn't wear a mask. I hope you didn't caught up in that. And if you did, I hope you learned your lesson really quickly, that this doesn't make any sense. How does cotton diapers on my face keep me from getting an infection? It's very odd. It's never really worked before. Don't know why you're convinced now. Anyway, I have probably was one of the top 5-10 doctors in the whole world that was the most outspoken when it came to COVID-19. I don't know too many other people outside of the 10 of us probably that traveled around state capitol buildings testifying to legislators and senators who would meet with us collectively in person in state capitol buildings to defend all citizens in the states of the United States. I also don't know very many people that were asked to testify in the King's Court in Parliament against the Prime Minister of England, Boris Johnson, but I was, and I did, against the crimes he committed to kill 45,000 innocent people in assisted living homes and nursing homes in April and May of 2020, using a combination of 2 drugs called midazolam and morphine. Killed those individuals in assisted living homes, elderly people. Then the chief coroner, per Boris Johnson, was told to have every coroner in the country write down cause of death as COVID-19, pneumonia, to set the stage for lying in the media of the numbers of people dying from this respiratory disease, which was not what was occurring. So they killed people in hospitals with a drug called remdesivir. So in May of 2020 is when I started speaking out and hired a publicist to go into the media to help warn and educate people around the country that they're using a drug in hospitals that is known to kill more people in the human trials than the diseases they were treating. And then it was banned in every one of those human trials. And Dr. Anthony Fauci publicly lied 24/7, beginning in May of 2020, that the drug called remdesivir, that I nicknamed for audiences around the world so they could remember, I coined the phrase, "run, death is near." So if you hear something that rhymes with remdesivir, rhymes with "run, death is near," that's the drug. And it was at the time when Anthony Fauci declared it to be the only mandated drug to treat COVID-19 patients. I knew it was a not FDA approved drug ever, so it wasn't proven safe and effective before he mandated it for all citizens in America to have injected inside of them if they were diagnosed with COVID. And I was hell bent to try to save as many lives as possible. And the whole reason why that happened is because my father-in-law was murdered 3 months prior to my discovery of Dr. Anthony Fauci's memo about the drug remdesivir that I found on the NIH's website. My father-in-law was killed in a hospital being misdiagnosed with the flu, pumped full of drugs that had the exact same published toxic effects as remdesivir, and it ended up killing him in the hospital. And in February of 2020. 3 months later, I read the hospital protocol set up by Dr. Anthony Fauci, mandating all hospitals to follow. And that's why I went into the media to make sure everybody knew the truth. So I'm called the remdesivir guy worldwide. Then in April 2022, a documentary circulated around the world called Watch the Water. And this was a documentary of me and a guy named Stu Peters that was published by Stu Peters and a Hollywood production team. And this was to expose what was being found by DNA evidence in 5 different countries at that point, confirming the cause for all the symptoms you know as COVID-19 symptoms. And what was published by scientists around the world in 5 different countries was not what you were being told in the media was making you sick. It was not a respiratory virus. There were actually synthetic man-made poisons around the world collectively being used to create your symptoms. And so in that documentary, I actually made sure that as the credits rolled up, the first set of credits were the antidotes to all things COVID-19. And the very first thing listed, which is why we're talking today and why anybody knows anything about me related to this topic, is I put at the top of the screen, nicotine is the antidote for all things COVID. And this was not something I just randomly came up with. Scientists around the world had confirmed why nicotine, as early as April of 2020, was the actual cure for all symptoms of COVID. And why they were able to explain in April of 2020 why smokers were the only group of people in the whole world, chronic users of tobacco products, were the only people that appeared to be immune to this respiratory lung illness called COVID. And scientists really couldn't figure it out for the first 4 months of the pandemic. Well, scientists in France figured it out in April of 2020 and published if all governments in the world would just encourage their citizens or even pass them out nicotine products, patches, gum, suckets, mints, you name it, you could end the pandemic globally within 2 weeks. But instead, Anthony Fauci went into the media the very next week and started lying to all of the American public. And then, of course, the whole world's watching the American media. And when Dr. Anthony Fauci came out and continued to lie for the next 3 years of the pandemic, this is what he said. Scientists around the world have new data about COVID-19. Those who suffer the worst outcomes, have the worst illnesses, end up in the hospitals and are dying from COVID-19 are chronic current users of tobacco products. Well, that is not what was found by science. Science found tobacco was the actual cure, and inside of tobacco is this nutrient, and yes, I use the word nutrient, called nicotine. And it is not only found in tobacco, and it has been shocking to watch the world's reaction to me unloading all the health benefits of nicotine and tobacco plants as medicine media continues to try to attack the narrative that nicotine is the altogether perfect antidote for all things COVID related, and not just COVID related. It just happened to be science figured that out early on during the pandemic. So I've been asked literally to fly around the world to multiple countries, go to medical conventions every month, and do presentations on the health benefits of tobacco and nicotine that are known and published by medical science. And I have been shocked what I have learned as a result of having to dive into, it's really interesting, Jason, why it is I've had to dive into all the health benefits of nicotine and tobacco is because the whole world has been lied to 24/7 since 1994, starting with the FDA in America, that tobacco is nothing but a dangerous, toxic substance, a plant with a drug in it called nicotine, which is highly addictive, and all tobacco plant-based products cause cancer and chronic illnesses and autoimmunity. No, it doesn't. You've all been lied to. And they've had to convince you of this in favor of something else. So during COVID, it was, don't let the word get out about tobacco and nicotine and the fact that commercial tobacco products are preventing people from getting COVID. Don't even mention that. No, don't do that. Don't let the human beings around the world find out that over the counter, they could go to CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, Target, Rite Aid, CVS, Walgreens, and buy nicotine products over the counter that could prevent them from ever getting sick with COVID. And they needed to make sure you had no faith in smoking and nicotine products and pump the airways with smokers are at the highest risk for getting COVID. I mean, watch Pfizer's commercials right now for Paxlovid, a drug for COVID. They actually say in every commercial, smokers are at the highest risk for getting COVID. No, you're not. You're actually the least. So why do they keep telling you this? In favor of Paxlovid, brought to you by Pfizer and by COVID-19 vaccines, most of which were brought to you by Pfizer in America, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, you name it. So in favor of drug products patented and owned by drug companies, they need you to not know the truth about tobacco and nicotine. And I cannot believe what I have learned about nicotine in the last 3 years that I've never known before.
So before we get into nicotine, I mean, for the average person, I think many people can understand. I mean, one, if maybe you don't have a fundamental understanding of the nature of government, the nature of power, the nature of control, and certainly most people don't have, I think, fundamental understandings of medicine. I mean, I think it's one of the things that kind of folkloric medicine, traditional medicines, they have been systematically taken out of the home, taken out of the family. You used to go to your grandmother to know how to best treat a viral infection or really anything. So a lot of people don't have that understanding, but I was still very surprised by, and obviously, even though the medical establishment, doctors are under the umbrella of the pharmaceutical industry, how many things that are still accepted by science somehow went out the window during COVID. I mean, very basic things that have been known for hundreds, if not thousands of years, things like natural immunity. Things like you mentioned, the 6 feet social distancing thing. I mean, that was even, there was, I'm sure, as you know, a House Subselect Committee came out that was bipartisan and literally said that was made up. It was just made up 6 feet. So, things like how the immune system works, the nature of viruses, but even amongst people in the medical field, all of that seemed to go out the window. How do you think that happened? I mean, how was there such a mass cognitive dissonance that affected even so-called experts?
Yeah, this is actually a question that came up for the whole 4 years of COVID-19. Everywhere I'd go, I'd be on stages, in state capitol buildings, and I was asked by senators and legislators, why are all the medical professionals, why does it appear like everybody's just following in lockstep? Even the medical professionals who should have known better and used common sense, logic, and stood for truth and science, they couldn't even do it. So I'll actually tell you has been the same reason I believe so many people, including those that we see as healthcare professionals, authorities in health, why it is they all so easily rolled over and followed these narratives that they know had no backing in science or in clinical experience ever in their history. In practice. Like, why would this ever come up, and why would you ever be now telling patients to do this stuff when you know it doesn't work yourself, and you know it doesn't do that? So, for example, even all surgeons know that you don't wear a mask while doing a surgery because you're preventing getting infections from the body of the person that's open being exposed into your mouth. That is not why that's there. It's only there to catch sputum from the surgeon from getting in the wound of the patient. It doesn't protect anything from coming into them. It's only to keep stuff from coming out of you. So to talk about having to wear that to prevent inhaling an infection is just absurd. So I was very proud to know there was like 2 medical doctors, I think, that ever talked out against it. I was like, where's the rest of you surgeons, man? You know this is the case. You learned this in med school. All right, so why did so many people roll over? I'll tell you, I think it's actually the same reason 4 years later, 5 years later, that I started speaking on 4 years ago. So when I would be asked this question, I'm absolutely convinced the reason why the majority of all people followed in lockstep was for one reason. And I'm talking the healthcare professionals, your nurses, medical staff, surgeons, you name it. I think all of them. The only reason why they all did it, and it's really a sad excuse, but I really think it's all because they know the majority of Americans, and I'm going to pick on Americans, that the people in America lived paycheck to paycheck and knew the threat of losing their jobs and their vocation or their ability to receive payment on the next Friday's payday was the most looming, threatening thing to them. They know 95% of all Americans live paycheck to paycheck and have no savings and have credit card debt up to $15,000 on average per family. So to say to them, you have to wear a mask, stand 6 feet apart, tell all your patients to do that, tell all your banking employees to do that, blah, 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 shut down your churches. It was all solely because they knew that the majority of all people in America are living beyond their means and knew that the threat of having no income was greater than the ability to stand firm and go, you know what, I'm not following this crap that's not based in science. No, the looming threat was you're going to lose your license to every medical doctor if you don't follow the remdesivir ventilation protocols, if you don't wear a mask, if you don't get the COVID-19 vaccines and show us you're up to date on those, you're going to lose your job. And I started speaking on this very early on, Jason, and I couldn't believe the amount of medical doctors who would call me within the first 2 years of learning about the hospital protocols. I had been bullhorning around the world. The threat looming in your hospitals was the real threat with COVID, not the virus, they called it. And when the moment they would actually go, they were actually aware of my research and my presentations on remdesivir and the hospital protocols and Medicare bribing hospitals throughout America to give every patient that was older than 60 remdesivir so they could get a 20% bonus, the whole hospital, for every patient they gave this to. When they would learn this stuff, they would go and look at the data from the research studies I provided on remdesivir in the clinical human trials. And then they would look at their own data of how many people died being given remdesivir in the hospitals for those COVID 9 to 10 day periods. And the data was identical. They realized, all of them that called me, that 33 to 36% of everybody that got remdesivir died, just like in the clinical trials for the last 3 years before COVID, which is why the drug was kicked out of all those trials. But Anthony Fauci lied and said it was proven safe and effective in all those trials. No, it wasn't. And then forced all these doctors to do it. They would call me and say, you're right about all the data. We're pulling it from internally in the hospital. It is the exact same numbers you've presented in the research studies. And then, Jason, they would cry to me and say, what do I do? I can't stand up to the board. I've presented the data. They just keep dismissing me. And they keep telling every single one of them, this is in 2021, 2022, they would tell me their superiors in the hospital, administrators, when they would present the data from inside the hospital and the research studies I was providing and testifying on behalf of. I would even attend board meetings all over the United States in hospitals in defense of all the people in those hospitals to bring the information to these people. Those same board members and administrators would tell these surgeons, tenured doctors for years in these hospitals, yeah, you keep your mouth shut, and you have to prove to us within 2 weeks that you got your COVID-19 vaccine and you're up to date or you're fired. That was what they were told. And then they would call me crying. And you wonder what came out of their mouth every time? Dr. Ardis, I have children with tuition in universities. I have vacation homes and boats and cars and second mortgages and blah, blah, blah. And this is what the great threat was. It was always a financial threat and worry that they would lose their job. And I will tell you right now, that's the only reason why everybody kept their mouth shut. And that is absurd, in my opinion. And to this day, Dr. Peter McCullough would travel with me all over the country and all over the world. And he would say, there's only about 500 medical doctors that are actually awake. He would say this from stages all over the place. And I'd go like this, can you name 30 of them? Because I only see like the same 20 everywhere we go. I've never seen any more than that are actually actively speaking out. I mean, how many doctors do you know were threatened by their boards or by their pharmacy boards in that state? I mean, how many pharmacists were being threatened in your city for prescribing hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin in place of other drugs for COVID? I mean, how many? Do you know any? I mean, I don't know. But I can tell you, I know just very few medical doctors who had their license taken away, being threatened. It was not very many. And I think the threat of losing their job and then being sued and legal fees accompanying that were the biggest threat to most people. And that is really unfortunate because your job and your oath you took was to first do no harm to any of your patients. And you are actively, now that you know the truth, are harming and inflicting serious poisoning drugs into the life of the people looking at you for help, all to keep your job and your paycheck. I would never be able to sleep at night, and I don't know how many people still do.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was alluding to in the beginning. I think it takes a rare person. It's very interesting. I mean, even maybe it's changed, but in the U.S. we would say we come from a Christian country, and these are fundamental principles of even how you would look at someone like Jesus, that he died on the cross for what he believed in. But when given the situation, how many people really believe that? So maybe at the end, I'd like to circle back to maybe what you see are some of the maybe if you think there will be any resolution to some of these things. But first, I'd like to get into nicotine. Tobacco has a fascinating history, and especially in the U.S. I mean, it was one of the staple plants that when the immigrants, the Europeans came over, the Africans, that was even a big part of the reason of slavery. But I think so many people know of tobacco, and I always find that a fascinating thing because when you think about plants that are known worldwide, I mean, there's not that many where you would go to almost any country in the world and they know of tobacco. And I often think that's one of the things that's overlooked is how tobacco spread around the world. And I think often that's really overlooked because usually things don't spread if there's not some reason for them to spread, if there's not some benefit that people are receiving. And even when you look at the history of the US, I mean, when the immigrants came over, if you had to look at all of the indigenous populations all over the Americas, from Canada to the southern tips of South America, Argentina and Chile, if you had to single out one plant that was considered the most valuable medicine plant above all others, it was tobacco. It wasn't ayahuasca or the willow tree of aspirin or any of these things. It was tobacco. And even in the beginning of the U.S., I mean, there's that classic American man, the man who's smoking tobacco. He's stoic. He's independent. He's against the government. He's a family man. He's wise. He works hard. That was the image that was given to tobacco, and that was very much loosely translated a lot of the Native American ways that they would look at tobacco. And even that idea that it was considered not only a medicinal plant, but a plant of spirit, a plant of knowledge, a plant that could teach people, a plant that could heal not only the body, but also the mind, which I think is interesting, some of the things you'll speak about, and also the spirit. But somehow over the years, and there's a lot of forms tobacco could come in. It could be snuffed, it could be chewed, it could be made into a paste, it could be smoked. I mean, interestingly, smoking was the least common way that it was used traditionally. In general, some form of ingestion was the most common way. But at some point, cigarettes became corrupt. There's all sorts of added chemicals. And then the kind of cosmovision, the worldview of so many people around the world shifted slowly to this idea that tobacco is evil. And it's so fascinating because at the same time there's this other angle that's happening of marijuana, which was also demonized, but all of a sudden marijuana was being sold as something that's purely good and medicinal, and there's absolutely no harm whatsoever. And yet they're both plants, and we still have this strange narrative of tobacco. And again, there's all sorts of reasons for that, which I won't speak about too much. So I think it'd be really interesting just to hear from your perspective, like a bit of the history of tobacco, of nicotine, and kind of how you see or feel that it went from this once very sacred plant, this plant that was revered, not only by the indigenous people of the Americas, but by Americans at large, by people at large. I mean, almost every culture it was introduced to really took it on. Maybe, I know there's a big question, but one of the other things is maybe the nature of addiction, which we can speak about later. But, essentially how it went from being a plant that was considered so useful, so beneficial, to essentially, maybe not today, but at least prior to today, a plant that's really been demonized. And now, interestingly, how it's slowly beginning to have a resurgence.
Yeah, let's talk about that. All right. So to start off this conversation, I would just recommend a medical summary of the tobacco plant's history as a medicinal plant. All right. So most of us are familiar. Prescription medications, believe your medicine has, by definition, has to come with a prescription and with a label and with a package insert. the tobacco plant has been known to be and published to be a medicinal plant, meaning a therapeutic healing plant for a myriad of conditions. And there is a great document you can download actually online right now. It's a summary of all the known published medical benefits and health benefits of tobacco. And it is titled A History of the Medicinal Use of Tobacco from 1492 to 1860. And in that document, they'll cover those 400 years. They will tell you everything in all the myriads of countries and numbers of countries that use tobacco plants successfully. And they even have several appendixes. Look at Appendix 2. They name hundreds of medical conditions cured and treated with tobacco. And they talk about the first appendix is which parts of the organs of the human body benefit the most from tobacco. I mean, they go through all the different organs and how you can use it: oral, topical, as a tincture, as a paste, as a tea, as a smoking agent, as a smoke. I mean, there's even discussions of how to cure ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, autoimmune diseases of the gut, by doing tobacco smoke enemas. I mean, that's what's in these documents, and they would cure these people these conditions. So if you want a real true summary of all the health benefits known by medical science, it is summarized in one document. Online right now, you can go get it. I've downloaded it. I've broken it all down into PowerPoint presentations. It's called A History of the Medicinal Use of Tobacco, 1492 to 1860. So that gives you a summary of all the health benefits of tobacco plant. I will just throw it out there for anybody around the world who wants to get another document, if they would like to do your own research and begin your own research. I have a book I published in August of last year. It's called Moving Beyond the COVID-19 Lies. If you go to my website, thedrardisshow.com, it's on the homepage. If you go to amazon.com, type in COVID-19 Lies book, and you'll see a white book with the Atlas of the World with a syringe laying over the top of it. That is my book. It has been an Amazon bestseller in multiple categories since it was released in August. An Audible version just went out 3 weeks ago. It is still today, every single day since its release, and I read every word since it was approved and put on Audible and Amazon. It is the #1 best-selling Audible book in the entire world, globally, every day since it's been released. So if you want a good summary, Chapter 13 is titled Just in the Nicotine of Time. And I dive into some of the topics and share all the medical research studies and references from the book, in the book, and we'll talk about some of those things here. So tobacco has a long history. I want everybody to kind of understand this. You've got to have a grasp of how the pharmaceutical industry and the medical institutions work. Okay? So if you look at an orange, everybody's eating an orange and peeled an orange and eating it. All of you have drank orange juice. Do you know that inside of oranges and inside of orange juice are different molecules? And one of those molecules has been deemed a vitamin called vitamin C. And when they figured out what vitamin C was in the orange, there are companies, labs, chemists all around the world who have figured out how to make a synthetic version of that vitamin C molecule. They call it ascorbic acid. You can buy it in capsule form now, in big bags. You can buy it in liquid form in a hospital and inject it into the veins of people. Vitamin C comes from a plant. They found it in oranges, lemons, limes, grapefruits. It is a nutrient found in there. However, chemists and science have figured out how to isolate components in these plants and turn it into an individual supplement, an individual compound, and then sell it to you and package it to you. This is how Big Pharma works. To make the majority of all their drugs that you know with different brand names like Humira, ivermectin, aspirin, you name it, all of these were found in plants first. And then these pharmaceutical companies, when they isolate the component from a plant, figure out what it does in animal trials and studies, then they synthetically manufacture or make a fake copy of this chemical, package it into a pill, syringe, liquid, you name it, and then they call it a drug. That's what they do. So, for example, let's give you a few examples here. Have you ever heard of the drug called Valium? Everybody at home, Valium. This is all about tobacco and nicotine, by the way, but you got to understand how the Big Pharma works. So there's a drug called Valium. It's used to help induce people into deep sleep states. Hold on just 1 second. I gotta do something here. Hold on. Just 1 second. Somebody just rang my doorbell. Hold on here.
Sure. Good.
All right. So to set the stage, just want to remind everybody here, we're talking about Valium is a prescription drug that your doctor can write a prescription for. You go to your CVS, Walgreens, pharmacy of choice. They'll fill the prescription and they'll tell you, you need this to sleep better. Do you know where Valium came from? Valium actually comes, even the name comes from the plant. Pharmaceutical companies discovered the Valium compound inside of. So there's a plant called the valerian plant. And if you take the roots of that plant, inside the roots is a compound they found that helps induce people into deeper sleep. It's a plant. But instead of telling you to make a tea out of the root of the plant, which would cost you pennies, they had chemists isolate that chemical and then call it Valium. So it's valerian root, a synthetic form that they called Valium. Valerian, Valium, it's the same 3 letters to create the same prescription drug name. This is how drug companies work. So they can patent a chemical they make that's not found in nature that looks very similar to a natural compound, and then they can patent it, mark it up for big profit and greed for your health purposes, not for their benefit at all, obviously. So that's how valerian worked. And then, for example, here's another one. Have you ever heard of Coumadin? Coumadin is a blood thinner. Do you know where Coumadin came from? Coumadin is a drug found in a prescription bottle that you can get at CVS and Walgreens only by prescription. Coumadin was actually discovered inside of cinnamon bark and in a bean in the Amazon jungle called the tonka bean. And it was used by people in medicine villages all over tribes in the jungles of the Amazon to cure them of blood clotting conditions and venomous snake bites, spider bites, scorpion bites. To keep them alive, they actually would take a tonka bean, rip the bark off a tree, make a tea out of it, and make their people drink it to preserve their life from the blood clotting effects of those venomous creatures, or from blood clots in general. When Louis Pasteur's scientists took the tonka bean cinnamon bark to Paris, France, to their institute to find out what was in both of them that has this action to dissolve blood clots and prevent heart attack, strokes from venomous creatures, they isolated the compound in both plants and then gave it a name. They named it in the early 1800s. They named it coumarin, Coumarin. Coumarin is the compound in cinnamon bark and cinnamon spice. You can look up right now, is the actual component of cinnamon that helps keep the blood thin and helps to prevent blood sugar handling issues like diabetes. Now, coumarin is the nutrient in cinnamon bark and tonka beans. Follow along here, people. You're about to learn a lot about tobacco and nicotine. You've learned about valerian root being turned into the drug called Valium. You learned about vitamin C being found in oranges, now turned into ascorbic acid, selling it to supplements, using it as a drug. You can get it in a hospital, vitamin C in a bag, and they can charge your health insurance for it by prescription only at 25,000 milligrams a bag. I mean, they can do it. They figured out how to monetize these nutrients. Okay. Now we are to coumarin. They isolate coumarin. Scientists at Louis Pasteur's Institute says, great, now synthetically manufacture that and let's change the name once you make it into a drug, a fake nutrient called a drug. Let's give it a different name. And all they did was take the R in coumarin and turn it into a D for drug. And that's where you get Coumadin from. So follow along here, people. Coumarin is found in tonka beans higher than in any other plant. Vitamin C is found in oranges and grapefruits more than any other fruits. Nicotine is found in tobacco more than any other plants. And right now, there are over 200 countries around the world actively banning tobacco use in their countries. Now, I need to explain to you why. When they discovered coumarin in cinnamon bark, which is found highest in tonka beans like nicotine and tobacco, when they discovered that they could make it synthetically, coumarin, and turn it into Coumadin. And when it first launched as a prescription drug in 1953 in America, Guess what the FDA was told to do with tonka beans? Ban permanently tonka beans from being consumed in the food supply of Americans. And that ban exists until today. Why did they choose to isolate a component out of tonka beans that's saving the lives of people all around the world in jungles from the blood clotting, deadly side effects of these venoms to create a drug that causes blood thinning called Coumadin, and then ban the plant that it comes from? It should start making sense to you now. I show you the ban for coumarin in favor of Coumadin inside my book, Moving Beyond the COVID-19 Lies. And then I dive into the nicotine topic. Why would they be trying to ban tobacco all around the world? Because it has the highest amount of nicotine. Well, what's the health benefits of nicotine? There's a lot. Can you, Jason, or your audiences, do you think? I just mentioned all these plants they found this nutrient in, then convert them into medications, and then they sometimes ban the plant. Okay, do you know how many pharmaceutical drug companies right now already have acquired patents on a synthetic nicotine drug? And if you don't know how many drug companies are doing this, there's almost 20 of them right now who are actively working to get approved a drug that is a synthetic form of nicotine in favor of the higher profits they could get off of selling you a fake version of nicotine that they can dose and isolate into a little pill form in a bottle at your local pharmacy over the natural plant. Well, how are they going to convince all of you after you had the stigma and the marketing prowess of 100 years ago and for the next 40, 50 years of making people look like they are the studs of America, like you mentioned, like the Marlboro Man, right? The father figure, the wise man smoking the cigarette and the tobacco product, right? They gave you this illusion this is a great product, a great plant that provides great value or masculinity or power or success. This is the image that tobacco brought us. How are they going to convince all of you to never trust that plant ever again? Oh, they had to lie to you. And starting in 1994 is when it started. The governments around the world, starting with the FDA in America, was being lobbied and told to start actively marketing deadly, addictive, toxic effects of tobacco. And we're going to blame all of those toxic and addictive effects on the one nutrient people know is in tobacco called nicotine. So you'll see warning labels now on every tobacco product since August of 1994. Warning, this product contains nicotine, a highly addictive substance. And you've seen it nonstop. Then they will also throw in cancer as a cause of using tobacco products. Your risk of having cancer, heart attack, strokes, cardiovascular disease are all increased. Oh, even your susceptibility to a bat's virus that coughed in China, you're more susceptible because you smoke tobacco products. No, you aren't. You actually are immune because of the benefits of nicotine in the plant. So what are some of the health benefits known to the pharmaceutical giants who are making a drug of nicotine? A nicotine drug alternative that they can prescribe to you and have medical doctors prescribe to you around the world. If they think nicotine's bad for you, why are the drug companies investing billions of dollars to make a synthetic form of nicotine to sell you? It's because they know what nicotine does. They've been studying nicotine at least since 1492. I just gave you a reference. You go look up all the medicinal benefits of tobacco. So let me just throw a few at you. Why would the drug companies want to ban tobacco products from all countries? And yes, the drug companies are doing this. They are telling the governments they pay with lobbying money in order to stay in your positions of power, elected officials. You're going to have to ban tobacco products in favor of our nicotine drug products. Okay, this is what they're doing. This is how they control the world and the governments around the world. What do they know in medicine and in science that nicotine can be a reversing agent, curative agent for worldwide? Number one is neurodegenerative diseases. Nicotine is a known. If you eat nicotine foods, by the way, tobacco is a nightshade vegetable family plant, and it has been termed that since the 1800s. It's in the family of nightshades, and all nightshades have the highest amounts of nicotine on earth, including your eggplant, bell peppers, zucchinis, squash, you name it. They all have the highest amounts of nicotine in the nightshade family. Tobacco happens to be in that family. All nicotine plants provide benefits, curative properties, preventative properties against Parkinson's disease, and it is known to medical science. Alzheimer's disease, and it is known to medical science, and it is published. Multiple sclerosis is improved. In fact, I was shocked by this one. How many of you knew that nicotine helped to prevent and reverse all multiple sclerosis symptoms? And how many of you out there who know somebody who's suffering with MS, or you yourself are suffering with MS, have ever heard your neurologist ever reference that you might want to consider picking up cigarettes or tobacco snuff? They ever said that to you? Have they ever said go get a nicotine patch? And if not, you should be really pissed, because in 2020, there was a Swedish study done for 20 years. They followed a general population study of the whole country, and they just compared them to chronic smokers. Sorry, they were actually only studying dip snuff users of tobacco. Those that put tobacco in their lip, chew on it, suck on it. They wanted to know what's the prevalence of the risk factor for developing and being diagnosed with MS in the tobacco dip snuffer use group compared to the whole population of Sweden. And do you know what they published in that study? I put in my book. I found this shocking. They said what they found after 20 years is the people who dipped snuff, it wasn't just them who had the lowest risk factor for ever developing MS compared to the whole population of Sweden. It was actually those who dipped snuff and used cigarettes, smoked cigarettes every day. They were the least ever to be diagnosed with MS. Just so you know, if you go look up any association related to MS and multiple sclerosis, any medical association that receives funding and donations for MS, you will read on their websites that smoking and using tobacco products increases your risk for getting MS. That is not true, and that has never been published. You've been lied to. All right. So MS, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's can all be improved with nicotine. In fact, if you find that weird, Parkinson's patients, Michael J. Fox and your association, go to medicalnewstoday.com and type in Parkinson's and dietary nicotine and go read the medical research studies. Don't read just the title. It reads, can dietary nicotine, meaning you're eating it, can dietary nicotine improve or reverse Parkinson's disease? And the whole article shares with you all the research studies proving the benefits of nicotine in Parkinson's. Why hasn't your neurologist told you? It's on a medical online website, a very reputable one, by the way. All right, so what else does it help? They know in all animal studies, mammal studies, including mice studies, and before I even say this, don't think it doesn't apply to you. Every drug ever given to a human is always given to mice first. And do you know why they do that? They actually say the mouse has every gene a human does. So we know any drug we put in a mouse, any food we put in a mouse, any chemical we put in a mouse, whatever it does to that mouse, it will do to a human. I quote, if it happens to the mouse, it will happen to the human. So, did you know that they actually use tobacco in mice to reverse type 1 diabetes? Oh, do you know who would be pissed if that ever got out? Do you know who owns the monopoly on insulin and diabetes drugs? Eli Lilly in Indianapolis, Indiana of the United States. They own the monopoly on insulin. They would hate knowing that nicotine increases insulin release from your beta cells in your pancreas in type 1 diabetics who can't even make insulin. But they've done it over and over and over in studies. This is one of the reasons Big Pharma doesn't want you to know about nicotine. Don't want you to know that this plant called tobacco God gave you, or Mother Nature brought to you, has the benefits it does even in diabetes and blood sugar control. Did you know that it's been proven that nicotine and tobacco can cure ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease in people with autoimmune digestive disorders? Did you know that tobacco and nicotine has been used to cure every form of arthritis, including psoriatic arthritis, for millennia? Okay, who would be pissed if that got out? Oh, every drug maker of steroids. Oh, what about Humira, which is actually one of the top 10 most revenuing drugs in the whole world? Humira for psoriasis? when tobacco would clear it all by itself if you put it on there topically, or if you swallowed it or drank it, or used tobacco products of any kind, or used nicotine. It's also been published that nicotine isolated from the tobacco plant, if you put it in a patch form and put it between the shoulder blades of adolescents, teenagers, and adults who are diagnosed autistic and have violent behavior, self-harm, that within 7 days of wearing a 7 milligram nicotine patch, which is the lowest dose, I show you the studies in my book, within 7 days, all their violent behavior disappears and all their antisocial behaviors improve. And after they do these 7-day studies, they find that every single person who took those patches, their loved ones, their spouses, their caregivers, and the individuals, for the next 16 years at least, when they do follow-ups, are still using the nicotine patches every day because they see benefits and improvements to their entire psyche. Did you know that schizophrenia is improved with nicotine? Oh, well, what's the threat there? Oh, I don't know. How many psych wards are given drugs and government funding to keep people who are diagnosed with schizophrenia, delusions and hallucinations, bipolarism, or put in those institutions and are drugged the rest of their life? Well, if you don't want to be a victim to all these things, you might want to try some tobacco that Jason teaches everybody about, because the plant has incredible nutrients, even outside of just nicotine alone. It just happens to be a very important nutrient. Oh, and it just so happens, did you know that tobacco plants and nicotine in tobacco is a published cure within 6 days of a 7 milligram nicotine patch alone for every single long COVID symptom that people have suffered from for the last 4 years? And that it's proven in medical journals that if you put a 7 milligram nicotine patch anywhere on the body every day of a person, no matter what the symptom is, heart-related, brain fog-related, loss of taste and smell, ringing in their ears, hypoxia, low oxygen levels in their blood, it doesn't matter. You put a 7 milligram nicotine patch on them for 6 days only, 100% of all their symptoms will disappear. I have the studies in the book, by the way. So if you knew that it worked against COVID and against that virus, my next question was this, Jason. What other viruses do they know in science that viruses and their infections are removed from the human body using tobacco and nicotine? Well, let me give you an example of a few. You ready? Every influenza virus that they have named, which there's 29 of them, are known to infect and make you sick by binding to nicotine receptors in the human body, just like COVID's virus supposedly did. And nicotine prevented the binding of the infection and allowing it inside your cells. So if it protects against all the flu virus families, guess what this would do if it got out to all the drug companies who make the flu vaccines being sold to you as the only way to treat and prevent the flu every year of your whole life? If you don't recognize this threat to Big Pharma, the nicotine discussion alone in this conversation is right now the biggest looming threat to Big Pharma for its vaccine agendas, which are its top 5 revenuing drugs in the whole world. Vaccines. And most vaccines are told you need to have to prevent what? Viruses. Did you know that almost every virus I've looked up, almost all of them, I mean, there's going to be more they're going to define. Every virus they know targets and binds to nicotine receptors in every cell of the human body. Every cell of your human body has nicotine receptors on it. I was shocked to learn this over the last 3 years. You may have already known this, Jason. Your T cells, your B cells that fight cancer cells, fight infections, help heal the wounds of your body. Did you know all of them are activated by nicotine? All of them. Did you know all your brain cells are turned on with nicotine? They're called alpha-7 nicotine receptors. Nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, to be exact, NACHR. But alpha-7 is the target for all these viruses. Did you know nicotine's a published cure for the rabies virus? Oh, what's the problem with that getting out? Oh, I mean, they've published it in medical journals, so you can read it, that nicotine cures rabies in all mammals. But what's the threat? Who's that a threat to? Well, who makes the only preventative therapeutics for rabies, supposedly? Drug companies in a multi-set of rabies vaccines. Well, if that's the only option for dogs, cats, pets, humans, and all you have is the options for a medical doctor or veterinarian to supply a pharmaceutical drug to you to prevent rabies, and you knew that nicotine and the tobacco plant was a cure for this, and has been known for this for decades. What's the threat? The threat's only to Big Pharma. They're going to lose money on this if people know they can go get access to this product, this plant, grow this plant on their own, or go buy over-the-counter nicotine products that would provide the same benefit. What about HIV? Did you know HIV is cured with nicotine? I have the research studies in my book. So you might want to know that. Well, who does that affect? Every drug company that makes AZT, by the way, which is the drug for AIDS. Well, you don't need that if you knew tobacco and nicotine was the cure for the spike proteins of rabies, HIV, and coronaviruses, which are your common cold viruses. Oh, now that I mentioned common cold viruses, can you start to imagine now why the threat of nicotine and tobacco staying accessible to people over the counter is a threat? Yeah, it's a threat. It's a threat to Big Pharma. There's a myriad of chronic illnesses. Big Pharma makes billions and trillions of dollars in total globally every year on conditions that are easily cured with a medicinal plant known to America to be a medicinal plant since Christopher Columbus walked the first day on this continent, which is way before you were alive. So you're being lied to in favor of drugs over plants 24/7. It just so happens tobacco was beloved by half of all American adults and used by 51% of all Americans in 1994 every single day. That's just 20-something years ago. Actually, I guess it's 30 years ago. Holy cow, it's 31 years ago. Man, I'm getting old. All right, 31 years ago. 31 years ago, 51% of all Americans were using tobacco products every day. In 2020, when COVID was announced and vomited on the planet, do you know how many Americans were now using tobacco products every day from just 30 years earlier? It went down from 51% to 11%. And once they got it down to 11% of all people in America only are still using tobacco products, that meant 90% of all adults in America would succumb to the symptoms of the virus they were going to release or the poisons they were going to release called COVID. And 90% of adults were going to get sick. And 90% of all Americans were going to actually clamor for what? Please give us your savior vaccine. We don't want to get sick anymore. You know who was the only one not clamoring for the vaccines? Those 11% of Americans going like this. What's the worry? What's everybody freaking out about? Yeah, all those people weren't getting sick. Only you were. It's very ironic. Medical doctors around the world have been shocked once I revealed this to the world, what science had figured out in labs all around the world. They would call me, medical doctors all over the world, and go, oh my God, my dad's a chain smoker. Chronic, overweight, chain smoker, unhealthy. My mom's a organic, all juicing, all Whole Foods diet person. Do you know my mom has got COVID 3 or 4 times in the COVID period? My dad's never got it once. This finally answers why it is my dad, who was unhealthy and smokes all day long, never got COVID, but my healthy mom did. Yeah, the whole truth is you've been lied to. Oh, this is another one. I mentioned psoriatic arthritis. All arthritises are improved with nicotine and tobacco. Tobacco and the nicotine found in it are 4 times more anti-inflammatory. Nicotine is an anti-inflammatory nutrient, 4 times more powerful at reducing inflammation and pain in the human body than creating any inflammation whatsoever. How many drugs are being prescribed to elderly for rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, gouty arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, name it? How many? Millions of you are, meaning it's billions of dollars in revenue. And it is shocking to me, Jason. People around the world walk up to me all over the world at all these events I go to every week. Dr. Ardis, I watched your interviews. Do you know I took nicotine patches I bought over the counter, cut them into 1 milligram strips, and I put it on my arthritic knuckle, my arthritic hip, my arthritic shoulder that I've had for 20 years, and within 48 hours, all my pain is gone. Congratulations. Well, who's that a threat to? Not to the patients that are receiving the benefits. Who is the threat to people figuring this out? There's only one group of people who would see this as threatening, and that would be Big Pharma. So The pharmaceutical industry is benefiting off of isolating components found in nature that Mother Nature has supplied to us or God has put forth on the earth for us. Pharmaceutical industries gather up the plants. Oh, they do this for everything actually on earth. And they will chop it up into little bitty pieces and figure out what is it made of, and then can we create synthetic versions of all the pieces? And then let's go investigate what those pieces do in the human body or in an animal first, and then let's go do human trials, call them drugs, call them hope, call them therapeutics, and then sell you the idea that you need to go get this from them in a prescription form. When in fact, if you listen to people like Jason, you'll learn that for 5,000 years, tobacco's been used as a medicine, but doesn't require a prescription. It has been used as a medicine to cure all kinds of ails, from cancers. Oh, did you know glioblastomas? Brain tumors, the most diagnosed brain tumor right now around the world in young people and old since the COVID-19 vaccines were introduced. Turbo cancers, killing people faster than ever, these brain tumors. Did you know glioblastomas in 2021 were proven in medical labs to be shrunk in half in 3 days or less with just low doses of nicotine intravenously? Oh, who's that a threat to? Who would that be a threat to? I don't know. There's only $1 trillion industry called the cancer industry. Chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. You either burn it, poison it, or radiate it. Okay, if those are your only options, they're going to continue to tell you what's the threat to you ever learning from Dr. Ardis and from Jason that nicotine alone from the tobacco plant is proven to reduce and shrink tumors since the 1500s. Oh, I have all the research studies and the documents, just so you know. So this is the reason that it is such a big looming threat. This is why USA Today, the Associated Press, New York Times writes hit pieces about me with the claims about nicotine. Notice they'll never actually quote my research. All the research comes from medical journals, peer-reviewed, published medical science. They'll never put that up there. They just want to dismiss the claims as disinformation, harmful information, whatever. And the truth is, it's only harmful to the people who pay them. And your mainstream media and your governments are owned primarily by the big pharmaceutical giants. So that's the threat. So I, personally, knowing that Big Pharma goes to Mother Nature looking for its next drug candidate, do you want to know where I put all my faith? In Mother Nature. So I have a brand, a company called Nature Wins. That's why I call it that, Nature Wins. Even Big Pharma has to go look in nature for 90% of all of its drugs. They go to nature to find the chemical or the nutrient that they can synthetically replicate and put into a pill form. Don't even get me started yet. We have plenty of time probably to do it, but don't even get me started yet. Did you know that, oh my God, did you know that for over 100 years now, pharmaceutical giants have been milking snakes' venoms and breaking down the components of venoms, isolating those individual venom components, figuring out what they do, either to paralyze, break down blood clots, cause blood thinning, whatever it does, cause organ failure. And they break down those individual proteins in the venom and then turn those into drugs that you're swallowing today. Did you know that ACE inhibitor drugs for high blood pressure starting in 1981? 22 million Americans today, Jason, just woke up this morning. First thing they did before they got out of bed was open their prescription bottle of lisinopril, enalapril or captopril. All drugs that end with pril are ACE inhibitor drugs, all built off of and made from venom from a viper snake in Brazil called the Giracus viper. Okay. Did your medical doctor tell you that's what you're swallowing to lower your blood pressure? Did you know you were swallowing synthetic snake venom into your body? And did you know that any synthetic venom is identical in its toxic action to the natural venom? And that's what all science and pharmaceutical companies state, that it's just as toxic and deadly as the real stuff. That's what they say. Then they make you swallow it. And did you know that since 1955, venom, if you swallow it, put it on your skin or inject it in any form, is published and known by the National Cancer Institute, who funded this research in 1955. In 1961, did you know that the National Cancer Institute funded research studies to find out, can snake venom cause and create rapid forming tumors to form in any organ of the human body? And do you know that when they figured out that was true, that they awarded those two scientists with the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1986 for discovering that venom introduced into a human can cause rapid forming cancers? Okay. You know what's crazier about that? The National Cancer Institute, their actual mission statement reads, we have been established and founded to receive donations to fund research to cure the world of cancer. That was in the 1920s. I'd like to ask you, why do you think the National Cancer Institute just 30 years later is now paying scientists to use snake venom to see if it will cause the formation of more cancers? Then in 1981, when it's already figured out that it can be done, and that works really well, the side effects of snake venom were called epidermal growth factor and nerve growth factor, the two terms all oncologists that you go see for your cancer are going to use with you, were discovered and described as effects of snake venom in 1955 with this research funded by the National Cancer Institute. Well, when they figured that out, 1981, they released the drug called captopril, which is lisinopril, enalapril. These blood-thinning drugs used to to reduce blood pressure are isolated venom components of the Draco's viper in Brazil. 5 years after they released that and get it FDA approved, and now 22 million Americans today are swallowing this stuff, and there's more cancer than ever before. You're starting to figure out why now, at least in this context. 5 years later, after realizing they got the snake venom drugs on the market, they've got a lot of Americans swallowing it. The only people that were going to benefit from this, by the way, was the drug maker of the venom-laced blood pressure drug called lisinopril and captopril and enalapril, and the drug companies that benefit from selling drugs for cancer treatment. Why? They know you're going to develop cancer. You're swallowing venom. They just didn't tell you that's what it was. Go look it up. Captopril, lisinopril is actually venom from a viper out of a snake in Brazil, and your medical doctor doesn't even know it. They were just told to sell it, and that in research studies it was found effective to lower blood pressure. Okay, great. You should probably start looking at the labels and reading the ingredients and the research on these products. 5 years after they got that snake venom drug on the market for all you senior citizens and people with high blood pressure, 5 years later, Nobel laureate society, who must be funded by the pharmaceutical giants of the world, awarded these two scientists for creating cancer with snake venom, gave them the Nobel Prize in Medicine. Really? I find that absurd. I'd rather give somebody the Nobel Prize in Medicine for curing problems, not teaching us and figuring out how to create more of them. So anyway, that's what we've learned. And nicotine stands in the way of a lot of this stuff. So if you want to know why it is so many countries, 200 of them right now have active actions to ban nicotine in tobacco products around the world, you're now going to learn why. When I released the Watch the Water documentary in April of 2022 and put nicotine in the credits as the #1 antidote to all things COVID, people around the world started curing all their long COVID symptoms overnight, actually within 45 minutes of using the first nicotine product ever, either gum, suck it, patches, pouches, you name it. And within 4 weeks, Jason, America, the UK, this is in May of 2022, just 1 month after my Watch the Water documentary was seen by hundreds of millions, within just a few weeks, America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and the UK all announced new national health agendas for their countries, that they were going to permanently ban all access to tobacco products and nicotine products over the counter by the year 2030. And until you realize what it is they're doing, that they're calling viruses, and until you start to understand the game of pharmakeia, which is to find things in nature, synthetically manufacture them, sell them to you for profit, massive profit, and then ban where they got it from in favor of their profits. Once you start realizing that's the game, you can start taking actions to start, number one, start asking a lot of questions from everything your medical doctor tells you, or that Big Pharma tells you, or the mainstream media tells you. And the truth is, nicotine alone is not the addictive substance you've been told that it is. That has been a flat out lie. And we figured that out, thank God, by a review of 7 million pages of tobacco giant research paper and development papers from a FOIA request of the FDA in the year 2015 by a university all Americans are programmed to trust more than all others, Harvard. Harvard reviewed 7 million pages. I covered the actual research study in their book. And when they looked at these 7 million pages of how the tobacco giants since 1970 have been developing their tobacco products, cigarettes, e-cigarettes, light cigarettes, tobacco snuff, you name it, they were shocked to discover that the FDA has allowed since 1970 and has known that the tobacco giants add 15 man-made chemicals called pyrazines to every tobacco product they produce. And that those 15 pyrazine chemicals are actually designed to make the tobacco product addictive, super addictive. And in fact, when they did the review and show you the names of all these actual chemicals that are solely there to make tobacco products addictive, not nicotine, Harvard actually writes in the paper, and I highlighted in my book, Harvard actually says we encourage the FDA to start regulating pyrazine chemicals in tobacco products because of its learned behavior and association with highly addictive qualities, these 15 different man-made chemicals called pyrazines. And they name them. They're in the book I show you. One of the amazing things too, Jason, that I was shocked by, I'd never seen this number. I'm sure you already knew this number, knowing your study work with tobacco, the plant. I was shocked to read in Harvard's paper. I show you in the book. I even isolate the quote and put it in there. That they were shocked to see that the FDA has a list of 599 man-made chemicals that are approved by the FDA and allowed by the tobacco giants to add to their tobacco products. I said 599 chemicals are on the FDA's website as approved man-made chemicals to add to tobacco products that you buy, called Marlboro, Redman, whatever tobacco products that you get over the counter. They're allowed to add 599 chemicals. Now, I'd like to ask all of you at home, can you name any of them? Can you name any of those 599 chemicals? And if you can't, how do you know none of those chemicals added to the products are responsible for the cancer and addictive quality of the actual tobacco products? How do you know if you don't even know what they are? The truth is, nicotine is known to be more of an aversive substance to all creatures on earth if they consume it. They really don't want it anymore. If they eat tobacco, chew tobacco, they really don't want it. Tobacco's been used as a insect repellent, all kinds of, just creatures don't in nature really like nicotine. They want to run from it. Well, the truth is the medicinal aspects of nicotine in the plant have been far known for decades. In fact, the document I referenced earlier, over and over and over the last 6-7 centuries, it was known until the mid-1900s to be the panacea of panacea. That's what they called it. The panacea of panaceas. And if you don't know what panacea is, go look it up. Tobacco, the plant, was known globally for centuries to be the panacea of panaceas. Go look up the word, and then you'll realize, oh no, this is why Big Pharma and all the governments of the world are going after tobacco. They need this plant gone, erased from history, basically, never to be trusted again, in favor of more profitable products called prescription drugs and vaccines. Was that a good summary?
That was amazing. You answered almost my entire list of questions with that one summary.
Good.
You know, it's fascinating because I think if maybe there was one benefit to COVID, it was at least allowing a certain percentage of the population to begin to question what you were just saying is kind of the stranglehold that Big Pharma, the government, have on the consciousness of people, how they literally see the world. And, you know, it's very fascinating because when you're listing all of these cures for tobacco, I think a lot of people would see that as somewhat hyperbolic or excessive. And yet at the end, I think you said something which was very important, which was tobacco was known as a panacea. And even in a lot of these traditional cultures, I mean, I was reminded by a group of people in the Peruvian Amazon called the Ashaninka, and they have a creation story, and you know it could go back eons, it could go back thousands of years, it could go back hundreds of years, who knows? But they essentially say that they had a pandemic, they had some kind of mass extinction event, and the only one who survived was, in their language, the Sherimpiardi, the one who works with sherim, which is tobacco. So even that's in the collective consciousness of those people. Like the one who survived all of these sicknesses, all of these pandemics, was the one who carried the medicine of tobacco. And even in these cultures, you know, they obviously don't use the same words that we use. They may not call something a neurodegenerative disease, but they would say things like tobacco makes the mind clear. It's like it lifts a veil and allows you to see the world as it actually is. And, you know, even that idea, I think, is really fascinating because, you know, a lot of what you mentioned was the more physical cures of tobacco. But then that's even interesting, like you were saying, this idea of getting people off tobacco, because then not only physically does it make them more susceptible to disease, but psychologically. And that's one of the things they would say tobacco really does. It strengthens the soul. It allows people to have power. It allows them to see the world as it actually is, to see through the veil and more maybe like Vedic traditions, like this idea of Maya, that we all see the world through all of these illusions, through these patternings and, conditions that we were brought into the world with. And it's a plant that allows us to see through that. And then on the physical level, it's known to have anti-inflammatory properties, that it's an extremely strong purgative, an extremely strong cleanser. It cleanses the blood. It cleanses the intestines. You're mentioning things like ulcerative colitis, and it's a very strong anti-parasitical. So all of these things were known to these people, which also is interesting what you said. Like very rarely does the pharmaceutical industry come up with something themselves. Usually they take it from someone else, that knowledge, and then put it under the guise of science. But I think a lot of people listening to this, one, it's very interesting because I remember reading a study in the US a number of years ago, and they asked children where an apple came from, and they gave them a multiple choice. And one of the answers was a plant or a tree, and one of them was the grocery store. And the majority of people answered the grocery store. And, I just think it shows a bit of this idea of how disconnected we've been, and not only from nature, but also, as you said, like where these things actually come from. We just think these are like magical things that pop out of nowhere, but they do come from plants. One of the things that I think that still a lot of people are concerned about is this idea that we've been told perpetually that certain substances like nicotine are addictive, which is interesting because even the consensus science doesn't believe that, even though that's perpetuated. I mean, I think it was maybe in the late 60s or 70s, there was an experiment done, which you're probably familiar with, where they put a mouse or a rat in a glass, very small glass cage with two bottles, one of liquid food, one of liquid cocaine. And after a while, the rat just kept going back to the liquid cocaine, and they said, okay, therefore, cocaine is addictive. But that's such bad science. It's like saying meat is bad for you. Maybe it is, but you can't just say that. Like, is it pork? Is it beef? Is it free range? Is it grass fed? Are you consuming the meat by itself? Are you frying it in a hydrogenated oil? Are you consuming it with white bread? Like, all of these things are going to have a tremendous outcome on the result. So it's often said, something like nicotine is addictive. But then, also, as you mentioned, there's 599 chemicals in every cigarette, which is also fascinating because there's kind of this sleight of hand where they say nicotine is addictive, but they're specifically referring to cigarettes, which you can't do that. Like
almost every research study will say nicotine. They're comparing
right.
it to something. But when you read the materials and methods sections of all the research study, because I'm a nerd and I like reading that stuff, when you read it, they're not isolating nicotine as a strict compound. They're actually using commercial cigarette tobacco. And you're like,
Right.
come on, man. Why are you labeling this nicotine? It's actually the whole plant. It would be like me taking an orange and going, we're going to just study vitamin C, but we're looking at the orange. Like there are so many other things in that orange. Like don't tell me it's just quercetin in the orange peel you're looking at. No, you have the whole orange and you do it all in the blender. We're only looking at quercetin. No, you're not. You're looking at the whole thing. This is so ridiculous. But yes, they use this play in medical science all the time.
Yeah, so it's extremely disingenuous and just very, very bad science.
And let's talk about addiction. You ready? Okay.
Yeah. And then, so to go back to addiction, I mean, that experiment was recreated. They call it like the Rat Park experiment. And because again, someone came along and said, hey, that's bad science. Like this rat doesn't have his friends. He doesn't have his family. He doesn't have the things he would normally do in nature. So they recreated a more realistic lifestyle for him. And then they did the exact same thing. They gave him liquid food and liquid cocaine. And what they found is he tried the cocaine once and then he never went back to it again. And that's so crazy, I think, for people to hear. And yet at the same time, like if we just step back and just looked with open eyes, I mean, you could drink coffee and I could drink coffee. You could be quote unquote addicted and I couldn't. that just shows like it can't be the coffee itself that's addictive. Some people can take cocaine and be addictive. Some people don't. Some people are addicted to sex. Some people have no sexual desire. Like, anything you could form an addictive relationship, but to say the thing itself is addictive, again, is really bad science. And it's also just not true.
Hold on,
So
I
could
just
you
find
could
this.
you maybe speak to that a bit?
Yeah, I find this really, really funny, actually. The more I do these interviews, the more I talk about nicotine and people bringing up the addictive quality of nicotine, or parents going, I would never try nicotine patch with my kids. Nicotine's addictive. I don't want to get my kids addicted to nicotine. Okay, I just need to say something to all of you. I'm really sorry. You don't give a crap about addictive stuff. You don't actually believe you would never give your kid something addictive. Have you ever taken your kid trick-or-treating for Halloween and loaded up their basket with candy loaded with sugar, maltodextrin, dextrose, sucrose, fructose? You don't give a crap about giving your kids addictive things. You love it, actually. You dress them up to go give them addictive stuff. In fact, go look at cocaine, heroin, and sugar addictive studies with rats and mice. They always are more addicted to the sugar, supposedly, than the cocaine and heroin. So if you're out there every Saturday morning going to the donut shop with your kids, you actually don't give a crap about addictive things coming into your kid's mouth. You actually give them addictive stuff. Every day you're giving them cereal, you're giving them sugar, candy, ice cream. It's all sugar's addictive, okay? All right. Now, if you're going to say the pharmaceutical industry only is trying to ban nicotine products and tobacco products because of its addictive nature, that can't be true. How many drugs do you know the pharmaceutical industry makes that are highly addictive, that are still being sold in pharmacies and being thrown all around the world? Oh, let's just talk about cocaine, for example. Is cocaine addictive? Is heroin addictive? Why haven't they banned that from the whole country if it's so damn addictive? Oh, wait, what about opioids? Why are those still allowed? Wait, what about benzodiazepines? What about SSRI drugs? What about antidepressants? These are all known to be addictive. Why isn't the governments of the world going after addictive pharmaceutical drugs to ban those? Those are way more addictive than nicotine is, and I can show you the studies. They've actually ranked addictive nature of all drugs, pharmaceuticals, that include nicotine in the list, and nicotine's not even the top 30%. It's in the lowest 30%. Everything else is higher. Tons of prescription drugs are known to be more addictive than nicotine, and they're doing that from cigarettes, by the way. I saw it in the studies. They're comparing cigarettes to all these pharmaceutical drugs, and not 70% of all the addictive drugs are more addictive than the nicotine. So why are they going after nicotine? It's a natural substance found in a plant that isn't patented yet. This is why they're going after nicotine. They need you to think it's highly addictive. If it was really an addictive issue, was why the governments of the world were wanting to get rid of it, they would be banning the more severe, known, published addictive substances the pharmaceutical industry makes already, okay? If they actually cared. That is not their issue. They don't care. And if our governments around the world are banning tobacco products and nicotine products because they're addictive, I'd like to ask you something. Why do they let coffee be sold around the world? Coffee has caffeine in it. Is caffeine addictive? How many of you wake up to go sit in a drive-thru for 30 minutes waiting for your $10 Frappuccino espresso out of Starbucks? I mean, why are they not banning and shutting down Starbucks for creating an addictive substance with caffeine in it? Okay, it isn't the fact that it is addictive. And no, you guys don't care about things being addictive. That's not your issue. You've all been lied to and conditioned that nicotine is addictive and it is bad. So it comes with this negative connotation. In fact, the word warning, this product contains nicotine, an addictive substance, because there isn't a warning on your Starbucks Folgers coffee cup or mug, because that doesn't sit with a warning, this product contains caffeine, a highly addictive substance, you don't associate caffeine as being a toxic, deadly thing or dangerous. There is no warning word on it. But they sure did stamp it on every tobacco product. This plant's got a tobacco or got an addictive product in it, but we're going to apply a warning red label on it. That's the only reason why you think it's negative. Your Jolly Ranchers don't come with a warning. This comes with maltodextrin, dextrose, and sugar that's highly addictive. It doesn't do that, but it is highly addictive. They just stamp the warning word on your tobacco products to make you think it has some other dangerous side effect other than addiction. The next time you wonder, I'm never going to give my kid an addictive substance that has nicotine. Oh, it's just scratch the addictive part. You now know you give your kids sugar. You don't care if they drink soda pop, Gatorade. That's got 40 grams of sugar in every bottle, which is super addictive. I know you don't care about giving your kids things that are addictive. You don't actually care about that. You're worried about the warning. Well, the warning is a lie about the addictive nature of tobacco products. It is not more addictive than other substances you're already giving your kids. And every one of you out there who are thinking right now, I would never want to use nicotine with my kids or tobacco products. Why not? You give your kids potato chips and French fries, don't you? That's the fourth highest containing nicotine substance on earth, is white potatoes. So your mashed potatoes, baked potatoes, French fries, and potato chips, they're loaded with nicotine. And then you get them ketchup with it, and tomatoes are the third highest containing nicotine plant on earth. And so every time you go to Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Burger King, Dairy Queen, and you get your kids French fries and ketchup, you're giving them 2 doses of nicotine every single day. You don't care about nicotine. You just didn't know nicotine was in those plants. And then your next question should be why don't French fries and tomatoes and ketchup bottles come with a warning label that this product contains nicotine, a highly addictive substance? It should start not making sense to you only once you realize how the pharmaceutical industry takes things from nature, then makes those things in nature either banned or look bad to you to convince you to demand it be removed from society in favor of science-based, FDA-approved products called prescriptions. Brought to you by Big Pharma. And the only reason why the FDA even slapped the label on there is because they were given a $10 million bribe called a fee to actually get their product on the market, called a drug, without even approval or review. You didn't even know they were doing that. They changed that about 30 years ago. That's why so many drugs are approved every day. You just pay the $10 million fine, get it immediately on the market, and then 7 years later, within 7 years, you're going to start seeing the commercials that this drug is now known to cause cancer, issues that you can now be compensated for. Yeah, that's because there was no FDA review. They're owned and bought off by the lobbying power of pharmaceutical industry and giants in favor of their drugs over food, unfortunately. And remember, we all grew up, you and I, Jason, we grew up with this phrase we heard every morning on Saturday morning cartoons. An apple a day keeps who away? The doctor away. All right, well, where did that phrase go? Why did it disappear from the ether? You haven't seen it since the early 1990s. Where did it go? You heard it every week. You saw it in posters in your elementary schools and middle schools of every school in America in the 80s and early 90s. And then all of a sudden it poofed and disappeared. You don't hear anything more in the media. You don't hear anything from Big Pharma or your medical doctor about food, apples included, providing health benefits to you to keep you healthy. Instead, all you see all day long, everywhere you go, I can't even walk into the grocery store next door. A Tom Thumb right down the street. I can walk in there. Before I get to the shopping cart section right in front of the door, there's a standing sign standing there that says, get your flu vaccines today to prevent the flu. And if you get the flu vaccine here for free, we'll give you 10% off your groceries. So I go to my shopping cart after looking at that. Then I turn around to go in the store, and there's a banner above my head covering all 4 doors going into the whole store. The same ad. Get your flu vaccines here and get 10% off your groceries. It's free in the back in the pharmacy section. Okay. It's all in favor of drugs as being the promoted cures to keep you healthy. You don't need food. You don't need apples. You don't need tobacco. You don't need any plants that are known to all of life to provide health, fuel, nutrients, immunity. Nope. No. We don't want you seeing that, hearing it, reading it. No. It's always drug products, always vaccines, drugs, prescriptions. This is healthcare. You've all been lied to. God's pharmacy, found in nature, is far superior to man's pharmacy in man's science. Man's just trying to replicate what God, Mother Nature already gave you and then profit off of it. That's what your prescriptions are. I mean, even ivermectin, the great ivermectin everybody's clamoring about. Oh my God, why are y'all so excited about that? There's a plant called sweet wormwood that does the exact same thing. And you don't have to worry about it. Just go get the plant. It doesn't require a prescription. It's not owned by Merck and Company. It's not owned by a big pharma company. Let it go. You don't need drugs. I don't care if they're generic or not. You don't need drugs for 99% of all things that goes on in the world, in your life and in your body. It's so weird, Jason. I'll just say it here. People usually love this statement or question. I've done this in medical convention after medical convention. I even did it at the Beljanski Cancer Institute last month. I stood up on stage in front of hundreds of medical doctors and oncologists, and I said, I want any of you out there to please raise your hand. I'm going to ask a question, and I want you to raise your hand when you come up with an answer. And I've done this over and over and over all over the world, and no one's been able to raise their hand once with an answer. This is what I say, and I pose this to all of you at home or wherever you are today. God bless you all, wherever you are. I want you to think about and try to name as many symptoms as possible that the human body can experience. So think about your own life. Name a symptom. Think of a symptom. I'll rattle off a few to get you started. I want you to think of any and every symptom on earth a human being can have ever. Fever would be an example. Your body's getting hot. Sweats, chills, shakes, pain, diarrhea, migraine. I can keep going. These are symptoms. Shakiness, tremors, seizures. Okay, just think about the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of symptoms you've experienced. Pain being one of them. Acid reflux being another. All right, stay with me here. I want you to come up in your mind, search your heart and your soul and your mind and the universe for one single symptom a human being has ever experienced in their whole life, which is caused by a prescription drug deficiency. Are fevers caused by a Tylenol deficiency or an Advil deficiency or a Motrin deficiency? No. No. There's not a single symptom on earth that is caused by a prescription drug deficiency. Then my next question is for you. There wasn't a single oncologist that raised their hand. I stood there for 5 minutes. I said, look, I'm going to give you all 5 minutes. And it's really awkward in a stage, standing there quiet, waiting for someone to come up with one example of a symptom a human being can ever have in their whole existence on this earth plane that is caused by the lack of a drug. And when no one can come up with that, I go like this. Great. So I have a question for you. Then why, whenever any human being has a symptom, fever, cough, migraine, headache, whatever, diarrhea, doesn't matter. Why do you go running to the medical doctor for a prescription? Why? It doesn't even make sense. There's not a single illness, disease, or symptom that's ever happened to a person that is caused by a prescription drug deficiency. So then why do you call your medical doctor or go to the ER every time a symptom happens? The only thing they're going to give you is a prescription tablet to go to CVS and Walgreens and Rite Aid for a prescription drug. Well, if your fever is not caused by a lack of a drug, why do you go to the medical doctor to get a drug? If your arthritis in your joints are not swelling because you have a deficiency in prednisone, I'd like to know why you keep going to your medical doctor for prednisone prescriptions. If that's not what causes your pain, why do you keep going to get it? And if you haven't had that pain or symptom your whole life, what happened to you to create the symptom? I like that question better. What happened to you to create the symptom? You knew there was a period of your life where you weren't suffering from these symptoms or diseases. Now, all of a sudden, you've got it. What happened to you? Your medical doctor's not going to tell you. In fact, they use a blanket sweeping statement to all of you now so that you stop asking questions of why me? What happened to me? They literally use this to make you stop asking that question internally. They want you to stop asking questions of why. And this is the blanket sweep statement and claim for all medical conditions now, including obesity. Thank you, Oprah Winfrey, for lying to the whole world last year and telling them that obesity is now not anything you can control. Obesity is now known and confirmed by science to be a genetic disorder. You inherited this problem. Okay, this is the same damn thing they say to all of you. Your high blood pressure came from your mom and dad. Yeah, but it just showed up in my 50s. Yep, you inherited that from your mom and dad. Your mom and dad had high blood pressure. So do you. What about my heart disease? Oh, you got that from your grandma and grandpa. Okay, come on. Everything's genetic. What about my cancer? Oh, you got that from your aunt, your uncle, whoever. It's always a genetic blame. And all that does is allow the medical professional to look at you and say, there's nothing I can do anymore to help you solve this riddle. It's just inherited. There's nothing you can do about it. And this is an incredible marketing tool and propaganda lie. There's nothing you can do about it. You inherit it. It's in your DNA, and you can't change your DNA. Therefore, if you are wired now to have a high blood pressure, cancer, heart disease, whatever, diabetes, if you are just wired that way to be that way, guess what now you walk away believing? There's nothing you can do about it. You have to just keep showing up for your prescription renewals, because the only way they're going to tell you they can help you is to help you manage your symptoms with prescription drugs for the rest of your life. Who does that benefit? It's actually not the medical doctor as much as you think it is. It's actually the pharmaceutical giants that control the curriculum for the medical doctor in their med schools. The pharmaceutical industry writes their textbooks, gives them their diplomas, maintains their license every year, and gives them kickbacks to all the drugs they sell so they can have their vacation homes, their boats, their whatever, that makes them feel like they have accomplished and have been successful. When in truth, I'm sorry, medical doctors, you're all being used as pawns. You're actually drug dealers on every corners for the drug cartels called Big Pharma. You're no different. You're just allowed to do it legally, to give out these highly addictive, deadly, toxic drugs in prescription form and get kickbacks, and your license protects you somewhat. Notice the drug companies don't get in trouble. You do, the medical doctors. Just like drug dealers on the corner end up in jail when they get busted for selling drugs illegally. If anything happens to a patient you prescribe drugs to, where's the threat? The threat's on your license. And this is why your malpractice insurance is so expensive. Can you believe this racket? It's so ridiculous. Big Pharma makes all the toxic drugs. They ban all the healthy foods they come from. And then they tell you you have to sell it for them. And you only can do it if you have our license that you get from completing our curriculum in our schools. Go sell and promote our drugs. But if anything happens to your patients because you wrongfully prescribe something, overprescribe something, correctly prescribe something, and it had a toxic effect, the fear is in the medical doctor that they're going to be sued and lose their license and lose everything they have. It's never going to fall back on the pharmaceutical giants. It's always you drug dealers on the corner in your clinics who are the ones who are going to be standing to blame. And it's just an amazing racket. Can't stand it. It's pretty disgusting. But once you see it, you understand. Everybody out there, are you in America, Jason? Where are you at right now? In the world, where are you?
I am American, but actually right now I'm in Europe. I'm in Portugal.
You're in Europe. That's awesome. All right, so everybody, I'm talking to you in America. You ready? America. All of you in America. You all should be shocked. Okay, 1776 was the Constitution of the United States, and in that was written that this country will be founded and protect inalienable rights and freedoms that were granted to us by God. And supposedly, this is what's marketed around the world that makes America so great. Come here where all these freedoms can be enjoyed or protected by this great document called the Constitution nobody else has in the world. Only America's got it. So everybody's illegally coming into America, flooding to America. They want to be here to be free. Okay, great. Those freedoms are what makes America so alluring. It makes all of us so proudful to be here. Since 1776, I want to make you become aware of something I don't think you've even recognized yet. And I find it absurd, actually. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. All right, so every single right given to you by the Constitution of the United States in 1776, we're now in 2020. Do you know that in 2020, all of your inalienable rights written in the Constitution of the United States, which was the purpose for founding this country, all those rights were taken from you. 100% of them. All of them. You were mandated, locked down, told what you could wear, not wear, where you could stand, where you couldn't stand, where you could travel, where you could worship, when you could worship, what you couldn't worship, when you were allowed to go to church, you couldn't sing hymns to God while in that church during COVID. That was actually mandated, ruled. You couldn't travel. You can't even go visit your granny in an assisted living or nursing home. You have to sit in the flower bed and talk through the closed glass window because you're a threat to them. Oh, grandma and grandpa, you can't even hug your grandchildren unless they're vaccinated. They're considered super spreaders of the disease, even if they don't have symptoms. So if they're not vaccinated, you can't even hug them. No holidays, no gatherings. There were curfews. You couldn't be out past 9 p.m. in North Carolina. It was ridiculous. You couldn't travel out of the United States. Okay, listen to me. All of your rights and freedoms were taken from you to worship, You couldn't even worship. You couldn't even go gather. They prevented free assembly. Okay, they prevented free assembly, people. The most basic right on earth. They took it from you. Then those of you who decided you wanted to be self-employed and have your own company, they told you couldn't even open your shop. They literally destroyed your income. They destroyed families, marriages, put parents against each other about the vaccine agenda with their children. If one didn't like it and the other one did, they would divorce over this crap. They were destroying every aspect of life here in the United States and abroad. But I want to focus on America. Why? Every right and freedom granted to us by the Constitution of the United States was stolen from us for 4 years, from 2020 to 2023. And do you know what I find absurd about that? You were told the only way you could have any of those rights and freedoms restored back to your life during those 4 years living in America. You were told you have to produce and show us that you have consumed a specific industry's product with a card. You can have your freedoms back as long as you show us you consumed this product. Who made that product? Big Pharma. Big Pharma literally controlled in lockstep all of the governments and politicians of the entire world to mandate, regulate your freedoms to move in America, in your home, out of your home, to your church, to your job, to another state, to go visit grandma and grandpa on a holiday. They literally stole all of your rights and freedoms in your life and in America, took it from you and said you can't have it back unless you prove to us you consumed our product. So, who was in control of all governments of the entire world? Big Pharma was. The pharmaceutical industry is literally the elephant standing on the globe, or if you're a flat earther, it's literally standing on the plane of the earth. So, and I find it amazing that during the elections of 2024, the campaigns by RFK Jr., by Kamala Harris, by Donald Trump, none of them brought up that the rights and freedoms of America were just taken from all of you for 4 years during Joe Biden's administration, like 100% of them. And no one wanted to address that this was the looming issue of frustration and strife for all Americans that turned out to get Donald Trump back in office. Really? You all ignored that? You just said, we're going to discuss abortion laws, immigration laws, and transgender surgeries paid for by government taxes. What? That was your entire platform? For 4 years, all of our rights and freedoms since 1776, for the first time ever, were taken from you by one industry. Okay, everybody, listen to me. If there was a chronic fatigue pandemic declared by the FDA, the CDC, and the World Health Organization right now, and in Europe right now where Jason is, everybody around the world was told there's a chronic fatigue syndrome pandemic, and all of you are required in order to go back to work because you're going to pass out, you're too tired and don't have enough energy. Could you imagine, Jason, if you were told in the news, and then there were banners over everywhere looming, that you had to show your boss or your employer that you went to Starbucks and got your coffee that morning to be able to go to work, or to be able to travel, or to go see your family, or to go on holiday, because you might fall asleep while driving your car if you don't consume and prove to us you took our Starbucks coffee. This is as asinine of what you just experienced during COVID-19. Show us you took Big Pharma's product and we'll let you have your freedoms back that you had before this. Okay, thank you. I now know who's controlling the whole world. They are. And they're doing the same thing. You know what's amazing about this whole talk about 200 countries right now trying to create a smoke-free world? That's actually what they call it. A smoke-free world, no tobacco products. Smoke-free world, no tobacco products. 200 countries right now in lockstep want to have a smoke-free world. Do you know who's paying all those countries for that agenda to be marketed in their countries? Do you know? There is one company paying all those countries to do it. It's a company, an LLC. It's incorporated. It's not a government. There's one company paying countries $1 billion a year, some of them, including New Zealand, to promote a smoke-free country. Do you know who the company is? Philip Morris Incorporated. Now, Philip Morris is the largest tobacco provider of commercialized tobacco products in the whole world and has been forever. The Marlboro Man, Brought to you by Philip Morris. All right, so Philip Morris is pushing this agenda. Do you know why they're doing it? If you go read their documents, you'll know why they're doing it. It's not to replace tobacco. They literally right now make $37 billion a year still from tobacco.
To monopolize it for pharma use.
Right. So for pharma use, they're going to do it. Number two, did you know that they just purchased in 2023 a company called Swedish Match? And do you know what Swedish Match manufactures? A little synthetic pouch called Zen that you suck on, which is a nicotine pouch. Okay. Philip Morris bought them. The year they bought them, their revenue went up 10% as a whole in favor of this new smokeless tobacco nicotine product called Zen. So what they're doing is they're hoping by the year 2026, they have published, we want over 50% of our income worldwide coming from e-cigarettes, vaping products, and nicotine pouches that we now own. This is not about getting rid of nicotine. Philip Morris, in order to handle the tobacco FDA crap, let's just go towards the all nicotine only products that are going to be safer than tobacco products. Philip Morris is controlling the whole thing, just so you know. And I find that astounding that a company that makes billions of dollars every year on selling tobacco products that you smoke are pushing the smoke-free agenda for all these countries. We'll pay you $1 billion in secret here. Just go do it. Lobbying power just to promote these things all over your cities, schools, you name it, hospitals. Smoke-free country, smoke-free country. Oh, yeah. In favor of what? Oh, all your electronic stuff where you can create synthetic nicotine products and profit off of those. And it's cheaper than having farms, paying farmers to grow tobacco. And you can just manufacture all your chemicals on your own. That's what they're in favor of, which is what drugs are. Instead of telling you to take cinnamon bark and tonka beans and make a tea out of it and drink it every day, they want you buying $500 worth of Coumadin or billing your insurance $500 a month with your copay and deductible every month for the rest of your life in favor of the profit on that drug that is much easier to make and supply chemically than to grow the cinnamon bark trees and the tonka bean trees. It's pretty ridiculous, but that's the world you live in. Thank you, Big Pharma, for taking all of my rights and freedoms. And yes, I will continue to expose your lies and your frauds as long as I'm alive and you don't take me out yet. As long as God's willing, I will continue to educate you that God's pharmacy is greater than man's pharmacy, and drug companies know it. This is why they have to patent synthetic products and then bastardize and get you to not trust what Mother Nature has always provided as a beneficial and health product for all animals and species on planet Earth.
Well, Dr. Ardis, this has been amazing. I mean, I think I could talk to you for another few hours, but I know our time is limited. I think final question. You mentioned this beautiful idea of this very sublime idea of what America was founded upon, which I think a lot of people don't really think about. This idea that our rights are inalienable and that they're given to us by God. I mean, that really is. There's no
plants
country
are given to you by God too, and they want to take those away from you. Notice they want to take the plants and life away from you.
Yeah. And that idea, it's so amazing because it means the reason that they're given to you by God is so that they cannot be taken away from you by man. That's because in most countries, your rights are given to you by man, so they can be taken away by man. But if they're given to you by God, they're enshrined. And yet there is this very concerted effort to take those away, as you said. I mean, I was in Peru during the pandemic, and I mean, it was very bad. We were isolated in the jungle for months. I mean, Peru had an extremely strict lockdown. You could only leave your house for 1 hour a day. There was certain days where only men could leave, certain days where only women could leave. You had to have 2 masks and a face shield, and not coincidentally, Peru had one of the highest death rates in the world. People were isolated in their little concrete houses with no light, no windows, with, all the people who are sick. And it was horrible to watch.
Who had the most deaths? I'm really sorry about the Peruvians. Who had the most deaths by countries in the whole world during COVID? By almost double,
I think in sheer numbers, the U.S.
It's America.
Yeah.
Oh, the irony. Everybody in Peru and other countries would be like, oh, if I just had hospitals and ER centers like America. No, thank God you didn't, because twice as many people of the next country, which was Brazil, America had twice as many deaths than Brazil. Brazil was number 2. We're number 1. Just so you know, that means America sucked more than any other countries at keeping its citizens alive during COVID. You didn't want to be here. All of them died, 100% of them in hospitals being pumped with a drug called remdesivir, which allowed for Peru, Brazil, Amazon, India, all of Europe to watch television newscasts coming out of America of all the people dying in America from this deadly flu virus or SARS-CoV-2 bat virus. Okay, all it did was set the stage. Killing people here allowed them to put numbers in the media to scare the crap out of all of you. That's all it did, unfortunately. And then they poisoned all of you to create COVID. I'm sorry. You got to read the book, Moving Beyond the COVID-19 Lies, because right now there are named 10 viral pandemics already looming and already on the schedule per Gavi, which is Bill Gates' vaccine initiative company. Go to Gavi and you can look at the 10. All of them are viruses. And if you don't understand how COVID-19 was orchestrated in Peru, in Europe, in America, in China, in India, in Africa, if you don't know, you are really ripe to suffer again from the propaganda, the fear, the anxiety, and the physical poisoning. I'm really sorry here to make all of you aware, but the word virus is a Latin word. It's not even an English word. It's a Latin word, and always has been. And I have sitting to my right 30 different Latin to English dictionaries dating back to 1771, Jason. 1771 till now. That covers 4 centuries, 254 total years. Now, dictionaries preserve language for all human beings. That's what we use as dictionaries, to preserve language and definitions of words. From 1771 till today, 2025, the word virus, which is a Latin word, not an English word, the word in Latin for virus since 1771 till today in every single Latin English dictionary has the exact same definition. Do you know what it is, Jason? Because it is not the same definition you find on federal health agencies' websites like the FDA, the CDC, Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins Hospital. You don't see this as the definition. But the true definition of the word virus has always been known for the last 254 years, and it's never changed. Do you know what it is? All of you at home should know what it is, because it is the same definition for the last 254 years, and it will not change. But every pandemic named for the next 10 all have the word virus in the title. Whether it's Congo hemorrhagic fever virus or Zika virus, Ebola virus, Marburg virus, bird flu virus, it doesn't matter. They're all viruses. The Nipah virus now coming out of Malaysia, they're all viruses. The word virus has only one definition for 254 years, and I'd be hard-pressed to know if anybody in your audience is 255 years old. So before you were ever born, all of you, this has always been the definition of the word virus, and man and science and medicine knows it. The word virus in Latin only translates into English to be one of two things. And I quote from every one of these dictionaries. Poison, comma, especially of snake's venom, or venom. And that's all it is in every single one of them. Viruses, by definition, are a poison, especially of snake's venom, or venom. And then my next question for you is this. All of you have been told, no matter where you live in the world, that there are annual virus seasons, like the flu virus season and the common cold virus season. Oh, yeah? If that's true, I'd like to ask you, how do they create a viral season every year if viruses are simply a poison or snake's venom? I'll leave that for you to answer, but how do they do it? How do you create that? Poisons don't just cycle every 8 months around the world. That's not how it works. Venom just doesn't show up in people's bodies around the world to make them sick. So how does that happen? Well, if you want to know how it happens and how it works, so that you're not afraid and panicking anymore, and you know what to do for the next viral pandemic or threat they're going to pronounce to you as their favorite one, because it gets all of you clamoring for their new vaccine and drug that they're going to profit from, you might want to read my book, COVID-19 Lies, is what's titled. Go get it. Read it. Once you understand it, super easy. You'll know exactly what you're confronting every single year from here on out. And that's my goal, is to make sure you're not going to be left fearful and afraid. What did God say in the Bible for all you Protestants out there in the whole world and Christians? Does God give you the spirit of fear? Nope. No, God doesn't do that. God gives you a spirit of a sound mind. He is not a God of confusion or of fear. Someone else is. So anybody pummeling you in the media, social media, mainstream media with fear, anxiety, and panic, that is not of God. God does not give you the spirit of fear. He put an immune system in you. That works. Even evolutionists should be mad. Even the atheists should be mad. Evolutionists, you should all be angry. You've been convinced for however long you believe in evolution, that you as a human body is the most advanced organism of all species. Per natural selection, you are more advanced than all other animals on the planet. Really? Why do you need a vaccine then? If you've been able to survive all viruses, bacteria, fungi, and parasites for eons to develop into this advanced species, what, did every part of you evolve to be the most advanced species on the planet except for an immune system? So you need a drug? Really? Come on, man. Let this whole narrative go. If you believe in God, it should be offensive. If you're an evolutionist, you should be even more pissed because they're telling you you are the weakest species on the planet because all other mammals on Earth don't need vaccines to continue to survive. All the pooping bats, coughing bats, pangolins, raccoon dogs, only you do. Only the humans need a vaccine. All the baboons and chimps and gorillas you came from and evolved from, they don't need vaccines to continue surviving. The only reason why they die is because we shoot them or we kill them or we create and destroy their forests and their jungles. The only reason why species goes extinct is because we kill them. So, how do they keep surviving without us mutilating them and murdering them? How do they survive all these random viral pathogens all over the world without vaccines? Yeah, it's pretty absurd. Once you figure it out, once you see it, you can't unsee it. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. I've enjoyed hanging out with you, Jason.
Well, thank you so much. Final question, with all of this darkness, craziness, I mean, as you said, I think even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, certainly 50 years ago, the idea that you could be forced to show identification, especially in the place like the US, if you didn't have something essentially forcibly injected, not necessarily by force, but basically by coercion, in order to live your life. I mean, that's very dark. And just with all of the kind of brainwashing of our education system, as you said, of big pharma, where do you see the world going? I mean, do you see hope? I mean, like obviously, maybe even the current administration, there was some hope. I think some people feel let down. Where do you see the world going? Do you see people waking up? Do you see more people becoming interested in people like yourself and that work? Like, because I've been using this term for a long time, and I think it's, I can't say that I coined it, but I think a lot more people are using it, which is that we are in a spiritual warfare of sorts. I mean, that's very dark. That's very, I mean, I even use the word evil, that those kind of things are being pushed on people.
It's definitely evil.
Yeah.
To devoid people of freedom to move.
Yeah. So where are you hopeful? Do you see signs of things that can be overcome, or do you think we're still in a long ride, that this is just the beginning?
No, I'll give you some just a few tidbits of things that I think are very exciting. So the mainstream media is going to continue to pummel you with a narrative that isn't true. So when certain groups and organizations have done surveys of healthcare workers, for example, throughout the United States. I've been interviewed on so many mainstream media outfits about this. In the last year, they've interviewed over 500,000 hospital workers, doctors, nurses, staffs, PAs, pharmacists. Did you know that in America, only 17% of all healthcare workers in America this year have admitted that they are up to date on their COVID-19 boosters? Only 17%. That means 83% are not. And when they interviewed all of them, they asked them, why not? And they said, because we don't have any faith in the COVID-19 vaccine. When they asked them about their flu vaccines for this 2024-2025 flu season, they were also asked, are you up to date on your flu vaccines for this annual flu shot? Did you know for all healthcare workers, only 30% are up to date on their flu vaccines? And they were asked, why not? And they said, we don't have faith in the vaccine agenda. Okay. So this gives me big hope. That's the healthcare establishment of America is like 70% of them are like, I don't even trust the flu vaccines anymore. I don't trust 90% are like, I don't trust the COVID-19 vaccines anymore, and I'm not getting another one. Good. How did this impact American humans as normal citizens? Okay. This is what I get excited about. So the bird flu was looming, and doctors all over America were being asked to come on the news and talk about the bird flu. And that when Donald Trump took office in January of 2025, they were going to be challenged again with a virus called the bird flu. So in the news articles, they said the CDC had already started in 2024 stockpiling bird flu vaccines in preparation for the next pandemic of the bird flu. This is very exciting to me. I think the whole world's waking up. Jason, thank God for outfits like yours. Thank goodness that they make these microphones and these podcast studio setups that we can all put in our homes, and then created social media platforms like YouTube and Twitter and wherever, Facebook, where we can actually share this stuff no matter how they attempted to censor it. More was coming than they could handle. Thank God. So thank God for that. It was a godsend. I loved it. But what I discovered from the CDC's own admittance was they said they've stockpiled bird flu vaccines and ready for the pandemic to affect America. Now, this is what I found amazing. They were asked, how many vaccines did you purchase? And the CDC admitted, we purchased 3.5 million vaccines for the bird flu. Okay. The CDC in America is stockpiling, they said, bird flu vaccines for all Americans. And then when asked, well, how many do you have? They said, we purchased 3.5 million. Okay. Do you know how many Americans there are?
1% of the population, yeah.
340 million. That means they only purchased enough to cover 1% of all the American population. They know you ain't buying this flipping narrative. There was no way they were going to purchase 300 million bird flu vaccines. They knew that was never going to happen. So when I heard this and read this, I was like, oh my goodness. The word's gotten out. And the truth is, I'm not sure it was our efforts to educate, warn, and inspire and bring people knowledge and wake them up. I don't think that's what it was. I think people give themselves too much credit, like they handled this and got everybody convinced that this might be a negative issue or question everything you're hearing. No, I think that no matter what they've tried in our water supply, our food supply, with our media and social media and our pummeling of propaganda, I still give credit to God's intelligence He infused in all of us and gave us common sense and logic. I mean, I think common sense ruled the day, even with all of their massive attempts to program you, brainwash you through the mainstream media. And the reason why I say that is this. I mean, how many people truly, even if you were falling for the narrative that vaccines are your only chance to save you from COVID-19 and the virus, whatever, even if you divorced your wife because she wanted to vaccinate your kids and you didn't, or you did and she didn't, y'all divorced, whatever. Even if you did buy that, but you watched Joe Biden and Anthony Fauci go on television over 3 years and say this: everybody needs to get the COVID-19 vaccine. It's your best bet for not getting COVID. And after they got 4 consecutive flu or COVID-19 vaccines, after each and every viral vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine they got, they went in the news to tell you that once again they had COVID-19 after getting the vaccine and they were sick again. And then would say to you, but you should still get the shots. I mean, I don't even understand how they thought they were going to get away with that. I really do think that enough people had still some remnants of common sense and logic. They were able to sift through all the propaganda and mainstream marketing. I think they were able to get through all that MK Ultra mind control programming. They got through all the media, and common sense still made them go like this. Wait, this is like the 4th and 5th time they've said this, and the 4th or 5th time they've got the shot. I don't think it's working. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's not working. Okay. All right. Well, we're not going to get them now. We're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to force people, make people feel bad, judge them, or shame them. But I do want to give one warning for everybody out there. I'm actually very worried, and I started speaking about this before Donald Trump even went into office the second term. This is a warning for all people around the world. I actually do believe that a part of this administration's job and the reason for COVID-19 and forcing all of the world to accept a new technology for a vaccine, knowing everybody was going to push back in general. Human beings don't like being told what to do in general anywhere in life, except for if you're raised in Asia. I guess you're just raised genetically, epigenetics, to follow and honor everybody older than you that says anything to you. You just do what they say. Okay, got it. But anywhere else in the world, especially in America, you're taught to have your own mind, your own thought, be creative. We believe in free agencies to make choices. We hate being forced to do anything. Everybody hates slavery. Most people hate communism, where you're being forced to do something against your will and wishes. Okay, we just hate that stuff in general. I believe they had to force all of you with a new technology so that all of you would get pissed and start asking questions about the old vaccine technology. And how many of you now know about the 1986 National Vaccine Injury Compensation Act? How many of you know about that now and you never knew about it before? That vaccine manufacturers have never had to prove they're safe and effective products since 1986, and they're never going to be punished. And I believe, as the CEO of Oracle stood in the Oval Office of the White House the first day of Donald Trump's new administration and said, Oracle, a software company and a computer company, said, we now have a new gift and savior for all cancers in the world. We can create an artificial intelligence designed vaccine for all cancers. I believe there is a play to get all of us in America and around the world saying we don't trust the old world vaccines anymore in favor of a new artificial intelligence mRNA technology of vaccines. And you're seeing it pushed 24/7, even by the new administration. The measles vaccines don't work, so we're going to do this new Arcturus self-amplifying mRNA vaccine in favor. RFK Jr. saying that, which is weird. He doesn't really like vaccines or trust vaccines, but you're pushing a new one. Larry, of the CEO of Oracle, comes in and talks about new vaccines for cancer. Never has there been a person on earth who has forced more vaccines and new vaccines, unproven, safe, and effective, than Donald Trump. Operation Warp Speed, new mRNA vaccines that killed and caused all kinds of wrecked havoc. But you put somebody else in place after him named Joe Biden that all of you are going to hate and scream because of the mandates and lockdowns and the vaccine injuries. You're going to hear all about those in this 4 years. And we're going to get tons of people to tell you about the horrific aspects of the vaccine agenda as it stands since 1986. And you're all going to clamor for something different. And what we're going to be introducing to you is that big tech has figured out a way to jump in on the revenue stream that vaccines have created all this time. And it's going to be brought to you by big tech. Now, vaccines, mRNA vaccines, biotechnical companies, including Pfizer and others, are now into the biotech phase of medicines and drugs. And I think this is like a false flag trying to get all of us to go, you know what, vaccines are bad. And all those that know the ones are bad currently are going to be all excited about the new ones. And I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. None of you need a vaccine, man. Vaccines are not proven safe and effective. You've just been conditioned, like with tobacco. Every tobacco product, when we say tobacco, you hear nicotine. Every time you hear nicotine, you think the word addictive. If I walked up to you on the street and said nicotine is and held a microphone in front of you, you would say addictive. It would just be automatic. That's not because it is. It's because it's all you've ever heard. 24/7. Nicotine's addictive. It's all you've ever read. Nicotine's addictive. Nicotine's addictive. Okay. If I ever walked up to you on the street in Europe, outside of Jason's residence right now, and I went like this, vaccines are, well, and held a mic to your face, I already know which 3 words are coming out of your mouth. Vaccines are, everyone around the world is going to say the same 3 things. Safe and effective.
Save lives.
Safe and effective. Vaccines are safe and effective. Nicotine is addictive and only addictive and dangerous, right? So this is programming. You've all been programmed. It's all a lie. Just so you know, you don't need vaccines. Nature in your human body has an incredible immune system, and it will function enough to keep you safe and healthy through every pandemic as long as you don't add poisons to it.
Well, that's a great way to end it. That goes into a whole other rabbit hole, which maybe we'll go into another time. But
sure.
Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I really appreciate the work you're doing. I think it's so important, and I know it's not easy, and I'm sure it comes at a personal cost, but it's important, and there's not many people out there doing it. So I really commend you on that. If people are interested in learning more about you, your book, I think you have a podcast as well, any work, what's the best way for them to learn about that?
Yeah, if you go to thedrardisshow.com, thedrardisshow.com, that's where my podcast is. And when you go there, it'll ask you if you want to put in your email. You'll be notified each week of my new podcast. I'm doing 1 a week. I destroy the narrative in pharmaceuticals and medicine that they're telling you. And then I show you all the antidotes known to medical science that are found in nature to every condition known to medicine, like many of the ones we just talked about. And then I also recommend everybody follow Healing for the Ages. HealingForTheAges.com is a platform I launched 3 years ago with Dr. Group, Dr. Ely, Dr. Schmidt. All of us are respecters of nature and medicine and detox, ways of healing the human body, and have been doing it collectively in practice for over 100 years. Each of us have over 25 years in practice as either chiropractors, naturopaths, and herbalists, and we educate people around the world monthly what's currently in the media, what research you need to know is coming up and coming out, and what are the best hopes and antidotes that don't come with the prescription or the threat of the terrible side effects and toxic effects found in them.
Well, amazing. Well, I'll put a link to those in the show notes. And thank you again. You're doing amazing work. You're a beautiful ambassador, and I really wish you the best in everything.
Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless everybody in Europe. God bless everybody in Peru. And one day, I cannot wait to make it to Machu Picchu. That is one of my lifelong goals, is to stand up in the Andes Mountains and overlook that beautiful vista from atop Machu Picchu. It's got to be one of the most iconic things ever on Earth, man. Can't wait.
It is. We'll keep in touch, and we can make that happen.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Thank you. God bless.
All right, everyone. That's it. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. It was a lot of information in a fairly condensed amount of time, but I think you did an amazing job of condensing all of that information. I think very important information. And as he said, if you get his book, I believe all of these things are cited in there. Links to all of these different studies, which there are an abundant amount of studies now on the beneficial, the medical benefits, the health benefits of nicotine and all of its related compounds or organisms in which it's found, which is always plants, food. So fascinating conversation. Thank you to Dr. Ardis for coming on. As always, if you're able to support this podcast, that's a really big help. Patreon is a really amazing website. It works off this very ancient idea of reciprocity. So if you feel like you're gaining something from these episodes, it's a chance to give back. And also you receive different things by signing up too. As always, to all the Patreon supporters, thank you very much for your help. It always means so much. And as always, helping with the algorithm. So if you're viewing this on YouTube, Rumble, hitting the subscribe button, turning on the notification bell, liking the video, leaving any questions or comments in the comments section really helps with the algorithms. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leaving a starred rating and a short review. Also, as I mentioned in the intro, if this conversation intrigued you, if you're interested in working with myself, with tobacco, with medicine plants, with the medicinal aspects, but really, I would say even more so with the teaching, the learning aspects. It's always an amazing opportunity of going into dieta, of learning directly from these plants. So if you'd like more information about that, you can check out my website at nicotianarustica.org, and there'll be a link to that in the show notes. So that's it. I hope this finds you all well. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you as always for the support, and I will see you all on the next episode.